All right, we're rolling. So, well, welcome everybody, and thanks for joining us this morning. The topic is distribution, and I believe the title of it is a discussion of the process of securing distribution. Record distribution isn't dead or dying, but does it encounter challenges in the download age, et cetera. So. I thought, first of all, well, one thing I always like to do when Dixie's tradition in the house. One thing that I like to do before we start is just sort of canvass the audience and find out how many people are, artists, artist managers, et cetera, just so that, we can direct comments specifically to that. How many people in the audience are artists? All right. All right. All right. How about artist, managers? Okay, we've got a couple. That's right. Let's see. What other? Are there any other shout out if you do something other than artists or artist management? Producers. Okay. Writer. All right. Publicist. All right. All right. College professor. There we go. All right. Well, we'll see if we can work that in. Well, cool. Well, good. That's right. Thanks. So, yeah. So at any rate, well, I tell you what. Let me. I'm going to take a spin around the table here and just have everybody give a brief introduction of themselves. We'll start here with Peter, and just if you want to give a brief introduction and tell us what you do.
Keep it. I'll project. Hey, I'm Peter Wells. I'm one of the three guys who founded TuneCore. About 4.5, 5 years ago, we came up with an idea. You do need the microphone. You can't hear a word I'm saying. Okay. Testing. Is my shirt causing feedback? No? Yes. Well, why not? We'll be in the spirit of the city. I'm Peter Wells. I'm one of the three guys who founded TuneCore back in late 2005. TuneCore is digital distribution. It's a way we envision for people to get into iTunes, Napster, eMusic, Rhapsody, all the big stores, any store that will work with us that we passes our tests. And so far, I guess the big noise would be about 1 million songs are in iTunes already. We're leading the world in digital distribution. It's pretty amazing. We're located in New York City right now, Brooklyn, and how about that for a quick intro?
That's great.
I'll pass along.
All right. I'm David Macias. I'm president of a company called 30 Tigers, and we do many things, but it probably certainly our the thing that we started out doing and is at the core of our business is distribution aggregation. We have a deal through Red. We work with a lot of individual artists who can't, or it's not reasonable or feasible for Red, for instance, to manage. They can only manage effectively a finite number of relationships, and they may want to do business with Beth Nielsen Chapman, but in terms of doing contracts and separate billing statements and all that, it's a little unwieldy to do that. So they depend on companies like mine to collectivize and represent an array of artists. So that's what we do and how I fit into the distribution thing. So.
My name is John J-Dog Shaw with Selecto Hits Music Distribution in Memphis. We, of course, are America's oldest and longest continuously operating music distributor. We're an independent distribution founded in 1959. Over the years, we have been a label, a retail store, a one-stop, but at the present time, we do strictly distribution. We do both digital and physical forms of distribution for independent artists and labels, but we are very selective in who we offer physical distribution to, and I'll get to that more, why we've had to be more picky about what we pick up from a physical standpoint. But we are definitely having to be more judicial in what we decide to pick up. Oh, they have one? Okay.
I'm Logan Rogers, and I own Lightning Rod Records, which is a Nashville-based independent label. My acts include James McMurtry and Jason Isbell, and I have always worked on the label side of things, just for several different labels, from a label, actually a Houston-based label called Compadre, where I worked with acts like Susie Bogus and Billy Joe Shaver. And so I guess I'll offer sort of a label perspective on distribution. And also, my label is run through the distribution company that David Macias runs, 30 Tigers.
Hi, I want to talk to him. I love James McMurtry. He's just absolutely fantastic. My name is Tom Hemisath. How you guys doing? I'm with Time Life. There's a couple of different things when you think of Time Life. Sure, it's the DRTV that you see at night and such. We've been doing that for about 45 years. We're the largest in the world in terms of direct response to consumers with CDs and DVDs. But a big part of what we do and what I do is retail. We've been in the retail business for about 13, 14 years. We have the Time Life label. We have Sorrel Rose Records on the label roster. We have everybody from the Blind Boys of Alabama to Joan Osborne, J.J. Cale, some great heritage artists. So.
Good morning. I'm Denby Auble. I'm the founder and president of Blue Corn Music, Blue Corn Records out of Houston, Texas. Our artists include Ruthie Foster, the Austin Lounge Lizards, Gurf Morlicks, to name a few. We are distributed through ADA, the independent group of Warner Music. And so I guess from that perspective, we can talk about how they have approached the both physical and digital distribution in this troubled time. So.
All right. Well, it sounds like we've got an illustrious panel here, so thank you guys for participating in this. Well, I want to start off talking about retail, physical retail and the state of retail. And John, given that you're on probably the closest to the front lines, I thought that you would be able to provide a good reality check on the state of retail at the moment.
Well, for years, I was kind of trying to be optimistic. I felt that, and given the dismal state of digital for us, it's a trickle, not a flood. I was of the opinion that digital was not the answer. I'm still kind of the opinion that digital is not the answer. It certainly makes money. I was a believer that the traditional store model would hold, at least with the independently owned small chains and mom and pops. I'm much more pessimistic now. I'm seeing stalwart chains, especially in the South, collapsing. They just cannot hold. And I think we're going to see pretty much the death of retail music stores, aside from a few specialty-oriented stores like Louisiana Music Factory. I think, I don't think we're going to be able to see, the traditional model hold. That being said, on the urban music side, it's rather frightening because digital is not the preferred means of choice either. So we can't really determine as a distributor how urban customer bases are getting their music, because they're not getting them through iTunes and they're not getting them through stores either, because if they were, the stores wouldn't be closing. So presumably we're forced to concede that they must be getting them through bootlegging, and that seems to be the case, and there's not much of a distribution answer for that problem. There's just not much of a way to combat it. In Vicksburg, I know a woman told me she was closing her store down because of a bootlegger that was literally setting up a table and selling burnt CDs across the street from her store. I said, why don't you call the Vicksburg police? She said, they buy from him. So at that point, there's not a whole lot you can do. So, I think there will always be some stores, and like I said, I think the people who buy music from a place like Mushroom or Louisiana Music Factory are going to continue to do so. But I think it's going to be your Borders and your Barnes and Nobles and your Best Buys that phase back or completely out of the music industry. And I don't know what the future holds for a major player like Transworld, because at some point that's the market that's rapidly disappearing. And I don't know what that means. Certainly we're involved in digital as well as physical, and we see money from digital, but nothing near making up the losses that we're seeing from a receding retail market. And I'm not very hopeful at this point.
Well, on that, that's a real downer. Thanks, John. Now I'm depressed. No, but that is the reality, Walmart, recently, John talked about, the state of the independent stores, and oh, great, thanks, guys. Talked about the state of the independent, retailers in Nashville. I don't know, it keeps closing and opening and all that. I'm not sure what the current state is, but a store called Platinum Bound, I was in there, I don't know, probably 8 months ago, and it's an urban store, and 80% of what they carried were mix CDs, and a lot of retailers, in fact, there's a retail chain that shall remain nameless, that's has a store near where I live that's heavily urban, kind of broke down after a while and got tired of not competing, and is carrying mixed CDs, and that is it's really a difficult thing because they're of dubious legality, and it's hard. These stores are being faced with either having to sort of give in to doing things which are like I said, of questionable legality, or go under. And on the other side, you've got people like Walmart who are cutting back their floor space. As the physical CD starts to decline, they're cutting back the number of titles, and it becomes almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy on what happens, because I'm old enough that I was around. I was actually, my first retail job, I was there when we were actually phasing out 8 tracks. So, but I was definitely there when the cassette went down, and it was one of these things, and I watched it happen. It was like almost all cassettes, and then when the CDs started to come in, we cut back our stock, and then the more the more the selection diminished and dwindled, then people finally were like, well, I'm going to get that CD player because I just can't get what I want and need, and the whole thing just within a year and a half to 2 years completely cratered. And so I'm not sure that we're necessarily going to be there, but I think that as John said, I think that niche stores that handle specialty things, like our office is right above a store in Nashville called Grimey's, which is an awesome store, and we're just one flight down. It's a little dangerous because I probably spent a little too much money there, but it's it's great to be there. So, but we get to sort of check in with those guys all the time about their relative health, and they're reasonably healthy, but they offer something that's really important in that. They're looked towards by their customers as a source of information, taste making, type of lifestyle store, and
live gigs.
Yeah, and they do a lot of live gigs there to bring people in. So at any rate, from the retail end, let me throw it over to Tom and to Denby. Just what your vantage point in terms of retail. And how that's caused you to reallocate your resources, and how you've the environment has caused you to change your approach. Well, actually, I'm going to talk to Logan about indie stores. So.
Well, I mean, everything that you guys said is true. Thank goodness for for SIMS, the Coalition of Independent Music Stores that are still out there. Stores like Waterloo in Austin, and Grimey's and Cactus in Houston are just beacons of light in this tough time. I know they're suffering as well, but the fact that they are tastemaker stores, the fact that they do have live shows there, they usually have excellent cooperation with a local radio station like KGSR in Austin. Has sort of kept that side vibrant. The Borders, the Barnes and Nobles, the stores that we used to do placement deals with quite often are just completely shrinking their floor space and number of titles that they're carrying. And so, certainly for a small indie label like ourselves, at certain times of the year, you just don't have access to some of the shelf space that's left, and in times like the fourth quarter, when when those programs were traditionally expensive anyway. So, you know, when we put out a release, we usually have a budget in mind in terms of what we'll spend per piece in terms of product placement, placement and positioning. And, you know, that has been certainly very fluid here in the past couple of years. And we're certainly looking at putting more of our budget in terms of homepage kind of placement in the digital world than we are trying to get P&P deals at some of the stores. So to that extent, we're certainly seeing our budget shift.
My world's a little bit different. We're actually having growth. We're having tremendous growth on television. We have for a number of years. Actually, this year is one of the best years in the last 5 years. And what we're finding is just people want to buy physical product. We understand digital. I sell digital. But they want to buy physical product. And basically what you've heard here, it's getting harder and harder to find that, you know, places to purchase it. And that's just the reality of it. It's really kind of sad. I make my living selling retail. That's it. The core business where I work for is DR Television. So, you know, every year when like a Music Land or a Tower, they went out of business, that was very impactful to me. From my side of the business, what we've done to more or less to try to adapt is, you know, work with, let's say, adult artists, like I talked about earlier, like a Patty Loveless and such. And what we find is, you know, we can get it in there. That's a type of a, you know, an album. It's a full album that people want to buy. We can get those into the stores. And we've had fantastic success, we really have. I know it's kind of flies in the face and such, but what I see more so than anything else is that simply the margin pressure on what we're doing. It's incredible, it really is. My sales have stayed basically flat over the last 3 years at retail, which I know is really quite different, just simply because of the caliber of artists that we work with. But in terms of profitability, you know, positioning and such, that's really one of the most difficult things that we have to deal with. I'm going into the fourth quarter, and I'll have all kinds of promotions between Walmart, Barnes, everybody. It's, you know, it's unbelievable the amount. Every year it just becomes greater each year. So for us, you know, we have been kind of bucking the trend a little bit, definitely on television, because that is a consumer that's harder to reach. But at retail, we're maintaining, but the profitability just simply isn't there. That's why we have one salesperson.
One quick follow-up. The one thing we do see, I agree, people still do want to buy physical product, and but perhaps one of our top 3 customers now is through Amazon, and so they're finding a way to find physical product, but it's online. So.
Yeah, that's actually a fantastic point. As we see, you know, a lot of different, you know, accounts that they've gone away and such. About 10 years ago with Amazon, for us, they were pretty small. They weren't that big of an account. It was a 6-figure account. But what has happened is that, you know, the advent of so many chains going away, people want to buy this product and such, that it's now, for me, it's a 7-figure account. It's one of my top accounts. And it's sad in a way, but you do still see, by default, that people do still want to purchase this product and such.
I have to say this, too. One bright ray of hope we've seen, the factor that seems to make the difference between whether a store is collapsing or staying vibrant is vinyl. The stores that sell vinyl are not seeing the kind of drastic loss of business as the stores that do not. And it's even leading some new retailers to add vinyl sections. Our Spin Street in Memphis abolished the PlayStation 2 games. They got rid of them and took that space and converted it into a vinyl wing of the store, and both used and new. And I think that's the only reason I go there anymore. They don't have anything new I want, but they do have plenty of good vinyl records that I will buy. And I think it's helping them.
Yeah, I know at Grimey's, one of our management clients is a new band called Those Darlings, and they're, you know, big indie rock darlings, and, you know, darlings of the blogosphere. And the first week at Grimey's, we sold, I think, like 32 vinyl and 6 CDs. So, well, I want Logan, given that you know, Jason Isbell is one of your artists, and I know that indie retail was an important part of the plan there. I just wanted you to address the utility and some of the strategies in terms of working with independent retail.
Well, with someone like Jason, he has a history with a band, Drive By Truckers, and he's now a solo artist, and he has a home at indie retail, and retail feels a sort of loyalty to him. So we feel like, I mean, we can as far as the indie stores goes, those are actual faces. As far as like Barnes and Noble and places like that, that's a corporation. So we want to, for as far as Jason Isbell goes, an independent artist that I tend to work with, I want to make sure that we take care of the independent stores first. So if that means giving them exclusives, for example, we did a promotion with Waterloo Records in Austin, where we gave them the exclusive pre-order sales. So anybody who wanted to pre-order the album had to pre-order through Waterloo Records, and they would get some sort of incentive, like a signed autographed copy or something like that. We did hundreds and hundreds of pre-orders through them, which a couple of weeks later, when I ran into John Coons, who is the owner of Waterloo Records in Austin, he embraced me, which I was not quite prepared for. I've
yeah.
never had a record store owner embrace me.
And Logan doesn't like physical.
No, exactly.
He doesn't like people to touch him.
It's
So
highly uncomfortable. Yeah, exactly. Y'all are actually a little close. So I don't know. It's we really want to take care of indies first. And as far as digital versus physical, we did press vinyl on this, which is great. I mean, having something. Jason's fans are younger than like James McMurtry's fans, and so a lot of the fans, basically all they know are MP3s or what they could play on an iPod. And to be able to have something nice and to be able to have something tangible that's big and you can kind of show off to your friends, we did a double LP with the CD and the booklet inserted into it, and so you could rip it onto your MP3 player, but you can also have this kind of trophy item that you can show off. So giving customers something of value has been a big part of the success of this release, and something that can help us take care of indies and also combat file sharing.
The physical side is obviously one I don't spend much time with, but I wanted to offer what may in fact be yet another ray of hope. About 3 months ago, TuneCore offered, we sort of partnered up with Amazon doing the Create Space Amazon On Demand program, so that basically people who want to can take the files they've already given us, send those files over to Amazon's regular CD store. When a fan buys the album, Amazon manufactures it on the fly, one-off, shrink wraps it, puts it in a box, fulfills it, sends it out to the customer, and the artist or the person who went through us, the label, only has to sit back and sort of collect what happens. They don't have to pre-make CDs. They don't have to warehouse them, nothing like that. It's a chance for people, without having to put any sort of big upfront payment or upfront investment, to test the waters of what kind of CD market there is. Now, this is, of course, Amazon. It's online. It's not the same as having your CD in a store. But what we've discovered is, even in just the 2-3 months this program's been going on, people have been starting to say, hey, there's a CD version of my album available. If I'm going to generate sales from that, well, I'm going to go get CD manufacturing because it shows me there's a market for my CDs. So at the very least, it's an opportunity for people to test those waters and maybe create more customers for the other record stores.
Sure. That's great. All right. Well, John, given that you are in the position of, you talked in your introduction about selectivity and in terms of, what you look for, and I'll address this afterwards. But when people come to you, what are you looking for? What are the criteria that you're judging their, viability on?
Well, it depends on what it is that they want. If they want digital distribution, we're really not that picky. They They must have a completed full-length album. We will not do a single placement unless we have an option for the album. They cannot have major label guests appearing without written permission. They cannot have samples without written clearance documents. And it has to be fully mixed and mastered. That's about it on digital. If we like it, if we think there's a reasonable chance of selling downloads on it, that's all we need. It gets much thornier with physical because most people want physical. First thing is, if they're not already obligated to a digital distributor, they're not going to get physical distribution with us without giving us digital rights. You know, it's insulting to come to a distributor and say, we want you to do your physical where you our physical where you barely break even, but the lucrative digital rights we're going to take to whoever. I'm like, well, you know, so what's in it for us, basically? You know, we barely break even on physical, so you're basically insulting us, saying I want to take my digital somewhere else, but I want you to do the physical, the thankless job of physical distribution and barely make any money. So generally, we want digital rights. If they are already in the middle of a 2-year agreement with somebody else, we understand. But normally, we're not going to do physical without digital. But it gets weirder. Or not weirder, but harder. We need there to be one of 3, maybe 4 things to do physical distribution, at least on the urban side. And we require that you have at least one of them, and we prefer 2. The first is previous sound scan. We can do things because they've been out before, they have a history. We can look at what they've done in the past and use it to place the current record. But of course, the average new artist does not have that. So the second category would be radio play, things we can see in BDS or media base, you know, where they've been out before, or they're getting radio play on the air. So we can use the radio play to place it. The third would be touring, but unfortunately, touring doesn't work well with urban artists. It works better with bands. So, like with no radio play at all and not much previous sound scan, we're able to take Jimbo Mathis and place it very well because he's gigging all the time, you know, and he's a member of Squirrel Nut Zippers. So we can take that information and use it to get good placement. But we can't do that with Al Capone, even though he gigs. There almost has to be some radio play there, you know, to get it placed. The fourth category is obscure, but we've had some records like this. Maybe they've not been out before as an artist. Maybe there's no radio play. Maybe they're not on tour, but they're famous for something else than music. We sold a heck of a lot of Wayman Tisdale CDs, and it's not because he's a great bass player. He is a great bass player, but people know him because he played basketball. And we sold a lot of Heather Hunter CDs, and it's not because she's a performing artist. It's because she's been a porn star. I mean, obviously, if the person is famous as an actor, as a basketball player, football player, or that maybe they're on this season of Big Brother or The Amazing Race, we can use that information to place it. But the average artist that comes to us these days strikes out. They don't have previous sound scan, strike 1. They're not on the radio, strike 2, and they're not on tour, strike 3. We can't do physical distribution. It's just that simple. We can't get our customers to order it. We could love it, we could think it's great, but our customers won't bring it in. And the only one who will is Transworld, and that in exchange for $2 a disc, which the label at Select is the label must pay it. We're not going to pay it because we don't get it back. So we are not going to sit here and front $2 a disc to get placement. And if your record doesn't sell, by the way, you don't get that $2 a disc co-op back. That's gone.
Yeah, I mean, you really, I mean, as you're approaching people, and I think John pretty much, I mean, my criteria is pretty much the same. You have to be able to have the vision of like, okay, how am I going to, whatever the retailer is, how am I going to walk into Walmart or Borders or Grimey's and give them a compelling case on why it is that, that they need to stock this record. And unless you can really articulate what that reason is, and you're, picky about what you bring in, because the thing is, if you tell somebody, oh, you need to bring this in and it's going to sell, if it doesn't sell or you do that too many times, your credibility as a distributor evaporates, and and then the buyer's like, man, everything you bring me, it doesn't work, and then your business dries up, and so you have to be, you have to be super careful. John, will you talk about sort of the fundamental basics? What can people expect when they are offered a distribution contract in terms of a range of distribution fees, returns, reserves, things like that?
Well, first of all, everybody asks me about fees, and the interesting thing is Selecto doesn't charge distribution fees, and some of our competitors used to. There can be paperwork fees and filing fees. I know the ill-fated Southwest was charging people $100 to fill out the documentation, which I thought was a little weird. I mean, you got to pay them $100 to get distribution. But, basically, we don't charge setup fees on digital, nor do we charge any kind of fee up front for distribution. The downside is it's just hard to get with Select Hits. I'm just going to be honest with you. You have to have something going for you. You have to have something going on. And we are bringing in new product, but these are mostly artists that people would know by name. Max Minnelli, Cuckoo Cal, Jimbo Mathis of Squirrel Nut Zippers, Afrosippy, the things we control the independent side of Jimmy Buffett. We control all his indie side stuff, which is Mailboat Records. He has a major side and then he has an indie side. So, we are real selective in what we pick up. But as far as fees, in my opinion, there shouldn't be fees. I understand some digital distributors charge upload fees. We don't. Now, we do a percentage. So with Selective, I can't speak for what other distributors do. One of the advantages of us is when you come to us as a CEO of a record label, you set your retail price, what we call list price. When you come to Selecto, you tell us what you think your disc should cost in a retail store. I don't know if other distributors do it that way, but we do. The price you want in stores, the recommended list, is tied to a fixed cost. So if you come to us and say, I want my disc to be $9.99, Selecto is going to pay you $4.50. We're going to charge Transworld $6.80. That's the way we do business. It's tied to a fixed scale. So if you say $10.99, you're going to get $5. If you say $11, you're going to get $5.50. If you say $12.99, you're going to get $6. And it's set up according to that set scale. And the only limit is that we don't like to go above 80 discs, which is $16.99. And I think, frankly, in this day and time, that's a high price for a CD. Some people still want to do that, but you hurt yourself as far as selling product. We call $9.99 a magic price point. And the reason we call that a magic price point is that's the price at which Violet Brown will waive the $2 a unit requirement on co-op. So at $9.99 or below,
Violet Brown works for
Transworld Corporation, yeah, which is FYE to most people, and you can get a free buy-in potentially when your price is at $9.99 or below. You still have to give her $1 a disc to get co-op end cap, but if you're not worried about having the end cap, display, then you can get a free buy-in from FYE when you price your disc at $9.99 or below. Selecta Hits pays the first time in 90 days, and then every 30 days after that on physical. We pay every 90 days on digital. It's the way we get paid controls how we pay. So digital and physical are different. But on physical, we pay the first time in 90 days because our customers are on credit terms. And then from then on, we can go month by month, assuming that there's a big difference between July and August. If the difference between July and August is 5 discs, we're probably not going to cut a check for 5 discs. But over time, as you are due money, we do statements, and you can see your statements every Wednesday. And you can see your sales report and your sound scan and pretty much know where you are. You can initiate a recall at any time, or we can initiate a recall because either you're selling our customers direct, which happens, or it's going over to a major, or it's just hadn't done anything in forever. You go about 5 or 6 months with no sales, no product flowing out of our warehouse, and eventually our buyer, Gary Bernard, will be like, this is going on the next recall because it's not selling anymore. It's over with. And we do a 180-day recall for everybody other than Transworld. Notice they like to be the odd man out. They want 360 days on all returns. and you have to agree to that or they won't order your products. So basically it takes a full year to do a recall out of FYE. Everybody else, it takes 6 months, and of course then we settle up with you if we owe you anything else on that title. And that's kind of, I think a lot of that is pretty standard. We may be unique in letting you set your retail price, and obviously we don't let you set your retail price if we manufacture. But since we're doing very few deals where we manufacture anymore, that's kind of a moot point.
And for our deals are generally we do a normal distribution fee is probably going to be in the range of around 20% of wholesale, which so that will wind up being, like for us, for $14.98 list price. The wholesale price is $9.59, and so now we charge higher than that because we provide a label infrastructure. So our deals are 28% on the physical side and 25% on the digital side. And as with John, we will not do a deal if we don't have physical and digital. And it's just a matter of there's more risk in the physical goods, and you can get upside down financially. And so to be able to offset the risk, it only makes sense to do digital. So we just flat out won't do it, and it doesn't matter who it is. And I want to say to Peter, your time's coming. We're going to get into digital really soon. And he's got a lot of valuable things to say, but we're getting there. So. All right. I want to turn it back over to to the label folk. Tom, specifically, you guys, I think are less dependent on traditional retail. Well, I'll open it up to all three of you guys, just in terms of finding non-traditional outlets for distributing goods, and also while I'm on that subject, and I'd like each one of you to address it. Talk about the international market. I mean, certainly with Roots Music, can do pound for pound, very well over in the European market especially, and just talk about if you have anything to add. I'd be curious to know your input on both non-traditional here in the States and international.
Where to start? I guess on the international side, we like many labels do. Our distributor actually has international reach that's been growing the past couple of years, so that's helpful. But in addition, and historically, we've had to go and strike deals in different territories. So, for example, in Europe, we've worked with Rounder Europe. We've worked with Proper Music out of the UK. In Australia, we've done deals with Shock Records down there, one of the biggest labels in Australia. So territory by territory, we've got to go strike deals with them, and they can either be a licensing deal, or in some cases, we'll actually physically ship product to them. And for each release, it's a challenge. If an artist doesn't have a presence or they're not touring in a particular market, there's not there's a slim chance that a foreign distributor is going to be interested in putting the money in to do a proper release. If you can schedule some touring time with your artist, then that certainly greases the wheels. In terms of non-traditional placement, for us, I wouldn't call it non-traditional, but certainly. The best distributor we have is the artists themselves on tour, and I guess that's the one way we can get in front of more people and make sure that we've got good visibility. The other that has been very, very helpful for us, particularly in Canada, is to be able to work with a distributor there that is unfortunately no longer in existence. There was one called Festival Distribution, but they're did okay at retail, but what they were really good at is setting up merch tents during the festival season across Canada, and they sold we sold 1,000 pieces a day, at a couple of the festivals up there. But it's point of sale and getting close to where where the consumer has just seen the artist and is impressed and they want the product right now. So it's no different than the artist selling off the stage, but maybe a little bit more organized in terms of a retail environment.
We're distributed by Warner, so we're basically in lockstep with what you're talking about, international, everything you said is just dead on. When you speak of non-trad, I guess where my mind goes, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that it's a big part of our business is, just by the nature of our music, we do work with a lot of what you would consider non-traditional retailers like a PCH. You guys familiar with Publishers Clearinghouse by chance? Or Catalog Music Group, those people? I'll tell you what, they can just move tonnage of music if you have the right type of product, you're speaking to them. It is, again, kind of falls into our wheelhouse where it is an older demographic. That is who we sell to and such. But those, we've seen incredible sales success. We have, just recently, we had on QVC, sorry, I just forgot his name, too many beers last night, but he was one of our big infomercials, Tony Orlando, sorry about that. He was on QVC. You go, oh, okay, he's on there for 15 minutes. That's great. That's wonderful. He sold, I think it was about 2,010 CDs, sets, in about 15 minutes. And would you like him to come back? Well, come on, bring him on back, So, for us, again, it's really trying to, to reach a truly underserved demographic is what we're all about. So throughout my career with Time Life, we really kind of work within the nooks and cranny of trying to find these type of places because we know we can reach it. It has been very successful, but it's a big part of our business, a growing part of our business. I know it's not records, but we picked up a fitness gentleman. I'm sure you guys all know his name as soon as I say it. Is Richard Simmons. You probably never thought you'd hear Richard Simmons here. But it was interesting. He lost his major label deal, and he came to us to sweat into the oldies. And we literally just went out and reworked it. We reworked it. We repackaged it. There was no real magic to it. We marketed it correctly. And we sold over 1 million DVDs last year. He goes on QVC. He sells about 180,000 units every time. So there is some real, for us, the non-trad world is very, very significant because, again, you are reaching that. But you have to have a message, all the promotion, the marketing. You just can't show up, I guess. All those things have to be in place.
As far as Europe goes, or international goes, I typically, I've done both types of deals as far as either setting up with a distributor doing just more of a distribution deal. The distributor that I worked for most recent release, handled the manufacturing in Europe, so I didn't have to bother with the shipping, and I just went with one partner, and then they went through them, and they used the rest of they're based in England, but they went through them, and the rest of their partners they distributed throughout Europe, for example. But I've also done license deals where it's where the company takes ownership basically of the recordings, and it's the marketing, every sort of expense is on them, and I'll get some sort of percentage in return of the sales, and it's been great. Basically, I won't consider signing a new act unless I can get some sort of worldwide rights, because with as we've been talking about, with the shrinking retail market here, it's just something, the world is getting smaller, so it's something that we feel like we can handle in our office effectively to make sure, especially taking care of tours and things like that. Non-traditional side, with my current label, I haven't had a real reason to do this, but I have worked on projects in the past. Like when I worked at a Texas label, we did compilation projects that had some sort of theme, either like we did one that was kind of like a hunting and fishing theme with a bunch of songs about hunting and fishing. We got those in the like state and national park gift shops and things like that. Or you can go, there are companies like Putumayo and places where you can get into more lifestyle locations. But that is great. That's typically, as far as like gift shops and places like that, the sales are one way, which is unlike any music retailer. So that's great. Once you sell them, they're gone. You don't have to worry about them coming back. So.
I was going to say, we do our international presence, our contracts are limited to North America on physical. On digital, they're the universe, but on physical, they're limited to Canada, Mexico, Puerto Rico, and the United States, and its dependencies, which interestingly includes Guam and some places that are over on the other side of the world, but it's primarily restricted to that. However, we have a good worldwide presence through exporters. We sell a number of accounts that technically are American. They're based in New York or San Francisco, but they exist for the purpose of taking the music and reselling it in Europe, South America, and Japan. So the downside to it is you don't know exactly where it ended up. The good side is you get fan mail back and you realize that you do have your products are in Poland, they're in South America, they're in Brazil, and you really don't know where it's going unless you get some letters. But yeah, we've reached a lot of foreign countries, probably more than we even realize, through people like Disc Union USA, Capri Products, Music City Export in Nashville, and a number of other people that we've dealt with that ship product to other parts of the world. Now, the beautiful thing about Select Hits is we don't really deal with the non-trad market. Those rights are retained by the labels we distribute. So what because if they're not SoundScan, we don't care. You can sell anybody you want to, even though you're under contract to us, if they don't scan the barcode. So what we're seeing a lot of our roots people do is dealing with bookstores, especially in Mississippi. They'll go to Lemuria in Jackson. They'll go to Turnrow in Greenwood. They'll go to Cathead in Clarksdale. These people have a fairly decent CD section. The sad thing is you can't go in there and put rap or mainstream rock, but they will take your Mississippi and Delta blues, rock blues, root stuff, and traditional blues and jazz, and you can get that stuff into these stores, and we let the labels consign it because there's really not a mechanism for us to sell. We don't have enough titles in our distribution that Lemuria Bookstore would want to justify them opening up an account or whatever. So we let the labels do that on their own. It doesn't affect us because the barcodes are not scanned. So.
Yeah, that's one thing I did neglect to mention. For the lifestyle stores, and Tom mentioned that we've done deals with companies like Putumayo before, and we've done deals with Starbucks as well on some of their compilations. So those are effective ways to get music out there as well.
And a lot of times we'll, we work with Beth Nielsen Chapman. Her last album kind of had a little bit of a new age vibe to it, and so and she wanted to reach in. There's a lot of new age bookstores. She had no distribution mechanism, so we went on her behalf, and we didn't really know where to go, but we just started canvassing new age bookstores and asked them who they bought from, and New Leaf came up fairly regularly, and so we went out and cut a deal with New Leaf. And we actually have a few titles now that are distributed. We take care of that. So, if you have a lifestyle type of project, go. A lot of times, if you just go and ask, who do you get your CDs from, and just ask several stores, you'll find a way into a market and a potential relationship. Like if you do Western music, Four Winds they're the champs for that kind of thing. They'll get you into every little Western bookstore or whatever. I mean, they're super picky about what they take on. So, but that's a good way of sort of approaching that. And so now we're going to turn it over to digital distribution, and we're with Peter. We have one of the premier guys in the digital business. So, you came from eMusic, correctly? And and now in starting TuneCore, which has really become, it was one of those companies that just all of a sudden instantly was on everybody's lips. So I'd love to hear the TuneCore story. Talk about your deals. And I know, we talked earlier, and you don't like to talk about other companies, and so we won't talk specifically, but just in terms of generalities, how your deals differ from other deals, and what services you provide, what you don't provide, things like that. So,
Well, thanks. Just before we move too far away, I did want to address a couple of the points that came up in a little bit earlier. John, you were talking about the 3 strikes. These were things that you have a tremendous risk that you have to take whenever a new artist comes to you. You're going to be going out on a limb doing physical. You're going to be leveraging all of your relationships with the stores and, of course, bottom line profitability. I wonder how many people here were thinking, okay, how do I measure up against those 3 strikes? Do I have sound scan numbers? Do I have radio play? Am I touring? Are those the 3? Yeah. Okay, good. I listened. Or, of course, you could be a basketball or porn star, but I'm not going to be able to help with that. Or both, yes. That's an image I don't want.
I was gonna say, is that the path to music success? And if you don't play basketball, I guess that only leaves the other option. So I don't know.
There's a thought. One of the things that our company wants to offer people is a chance to build those numbers, to get up to bat, to see if they can get any of those hits instead of strikes. If you are going through TuneCore, you're going to get sound scanned. The stores are going to report. Now, different stores report with different levels of accuracy, and we've counted literally hundreds of thousands of sales, and we know they're sales because we've paid the money, that have not appeared on SoundScan. Let's hope that that situation changes. But even so, if you're going to sell an album or sell a song through iTunes, it's going to show up on SoundScan. You're going to be able to, after 3, 4, 6 months, have a portfolio, a list of what you've sold, where you've sold it. It includes zip codes. If you can say, I'm really strong in Memphis, I'm really strong in, heck, it even includes European codes, Paris. You could take that as information. You could approach a major, a smaller company, any company that's out there and say, we have a track record. You can also use the information to decide where you want to tour so that your tour is more successful. I mean, people would love to tour if they know they can fill a house, and if they know through the sales that they're doing very well in, again, west of the Mississippi or the Northeast, they can tour more successfully, and then they can go to say, hey, look, I've got this information. I'm hoping this will give new blood and new customers to people who are looking for a larger set of distribution, not just digital. So that's just one of the things. It kind of ties into the philosophy of TuneCore. What we wanted to do was to present artists with all the tools they could possibly need. That doesn't mean everyone's going to take advantage of those tools. It doesn't mean everyone's going to have the same definition of success. I won't lie. We have a lot of people who use us because they want to go to their friends and family and say, hey, look, I'm on iTunes. Okay, if that's the level of success they want. The company actually started with Jeff Price, who ran Spin Art Records for, I guess, about 20 years, 19 years, based out of New York. He had some pretty big guys, I think, in the alternative area, Echo and the Bunnymen, Apples and Stereo, the Pixies, and Frank Black after he left. He had his own pipeline into iTunes early on. Back in the old days when iTunes was sort of getting started, they were looking for anyone who had good content to fill up their store. So getting an actual contract, a distribution deal with iTunes wasn't as difficult as it is now. He had it, but he wanted to talk about, before he got it, he wanted to deal with some of the other companies that were charging, like IOTA, The Orchard, etc. One sec. That's better. These companies were based on, they were doing digital distribution, but they were using a kind of model that traditional distributors were using. They were taking a back-end percentage. And Jeff was upset about this, and he loves to get very angry about it when he talks about it, because he knows just how hard physical and traditional distributors work. Those guys have warehouses. They've got insurance. If the roof leaks on your pile of 500 CDs, you've got a problem.
Which it did.
Oh, did it? Did that happen to you?
Yeah, water came pouring through our roof the other day between the joint of the two warehouses. It's been about 2 months ago, and the two buildings were added to each other, and that joint there's holes there, and a bird made a nest in the gutter, and it caused the water to back up and become like a swimming pool on the roof, and then it all came pouring down onto the table where orders were assembled.
Open material, just waiting there to get totally soaked.
At noon, while we had the table covered with orders.
Right, and I'm sure you were able to pass on any losses to your labels. They happily paid for any
Our
difficulties.
insurance paid, actually, fortunately.
Bingo. Well, that's the thing is, and you've got buyers. You've got cars that those buyers need to drive in. And last of all, you've got just the relationships that you can go to a store and say, this needs to be an end cap. This needs to be by the register. This needs to be, I don't know, put this guy's poster up on your window. Hey, that doesn't exist in the digital world. It's a file. It goes to a store, and though there is some, if you will, marquee front space in like iTunes or eMusic, their homepage, it's not the same as most content is just going to be a giant searchable pool of information. People are going to be able to type in by search engine, maybe browse by genre. There is no individual relationship I have to sweet talk or anyone has to work with over at iTunes or something to say, take this material, it's great. I'll tell you this, they take almost anything. We have put some stuff into these stores that make for interesting office listening to sometimes. But what they want is to be the largest seller in the world. They want, and all the stores want to be able to compete with that. eMusic, they're all leveraging major label content, say that 4 times, if they at all can. The requirements of a digital distributor are a lot less. They just are. We have the relationship, we send the files, we send the metadata. When reports come back, okay, they come back. It's a giant check or a giant direct deposit from the store, comes monthly or quarterly in a couple of cases, and an enormous spreadsheet. That spreadsheet's going to list everything that's sold, how it's sold, where it's sold in that store, and as a distributor, it'd be our job to break out that data, make sure each label or artist gets exactly what they need, married up to the money that they do. This can all be done in software. It's automated. Why on earth should we take a percentage? We didn't go out and tour. We didn't buy you a van or gas for the van to tour. You guys are eating ramen while you sleep in the back of the van trying to save money so that the $100 you got from that gig the other night is going to actually be profit instead of eaten up. That beer that the venue gives it to the band, that's great that you get a free beer. Free drinks are a good thing. If you had to pay for them, that might be your whole profit for the evening. Small people and even large, they shouldn't be having a percentage taken off by somebody who isn't working diligently, daily, to make their success positive. And that was where the idea for TuneCore actually came from. The mechanics, the infrastructure that used to be so difficult of getting distribution, the upfront expenditure, either having a company make the discs themselves or you fronting the cash to get those discs made, making sure that you caught the ear of an A&R person, if it's a major or anyone really, and then supporting. If you're going to do all those things, you deserve a percentage. In digital, we didn't think people did. The keys are access and infrastructure. TuneCore was able to lower the price on infrastructure to the point where it was affordable by anybody. And access, now that we have digital stores and shelf space is unlimited, you send a file once, it gets duplicated an infinite number of times. You guys probably know all this just from having used iTunes and things like it. So we said, why not do it like Federal Express? They're data packages, it's all they are. You have one coming in and one going out. The one coming in is the music, upload it. The picture, every album has a thumbnail, upload it. Gary Burke was our CTO. He and I and Jeff, 3 of us got together in my living room and cooked this thing up. And in about 12 weeks from the idea to launch date, we launched in, I guess it was January 26, 2006. And Frank Black was our first customer. It was great. And we started with just 2 stores, iTunes and eMusic. And of course, it was kind of a wild and woolly time. It still is. But the traction that we were getting was that people were saying, for the cost of basically a pizza and a 6-pack, I can get worldwide digital distribution without having any cut on the back end, without any exclusivity, without any contract to sign. Our original, the very first thing we, very first piece of flyer, image marketing that we ever did for the company, just said, sign yourself. That was it. Now, there are a lot of implications to this. First, right back to the idea of choice again. You won't take, John, someone who isn't going to give you digital as well. If they were locked into a contract with us, it wouldn't help them to show you numbers or show anyone else numbers. If they then said, well, sorry, it's like the Orchard, I've got a 5-year digital
Well, actually,
exclusive. Or
that's where it's a little ironic. If they were locked into a contract with you, we would go ahead and if we want to do their digital, their physical, we'd probably go ahead and do it, understanding that they can't break their contract with TuneCore.
But it's also it's more attractive to you.
Yeah.
If they're not locked.
Yeah, where we get nasty is when they're not with TuneCore or Orchard or anybody else. They're
they
not with
want
physical
to.
either, and they basically are saying, we're not going to give you digital rights. We want to go to TuneCore with it. We're like, well, that's kind of lousy. You're not with them already, and you want us to do your physical, but you don't want to give us digital rights.
Well, they know darn well that their digital sales are going to increase because of the physical work you're doing with it, aren't
Yeah.
they? So they want to have their cake and eat it too.
Exactly.
That's an artist's choice. If they want to, they can. A savvy person isn't going to let that happen, and it happens all the time. We get people who write me emails and say, I just signed with fill in the blank. I need to have my stuff down immediately. Okay, 24 hours later, your music is off iTunes.
And also, one thing, I wanted to share an experience. We have one of our artists. We actually did a deal. We were sort of in that mode with a digital distributor that we shall not name for one of our management clients. And we actually opened a TuneCore thing for Matthew Perryman Jones. And, they immediately, we had a situation where Matthew recorded a song with another artist named Katie Herzig, and they sent it out they get a lot of their music played on television. Basically, they recorded it, sent it out to music supervisor, the people that pitched their music. It was picked up for Grey's Anatomy within like 3 days, and it was going to air in 2 weeks. And so we basically jumped into action. TuneCore, it wasn't like it just sort of, TuneCore, because that's a pretty quick turnaround to get something up on iTunes, but they jumped in, explained the situation, and we got it up so that when we were able to, when that song was playing and it had a pretty prominent placement, we were able to do Facebook advertising, targeting the Grey's Anatomy audience, and directed them to iTunes. But had it not been for them jumping in, so I was just very impressed by that. So it's not just, it's not like you just sort of like put it up and
I was getting to that.
and all that. You guys actually do have relationships and go. It's not just a strictly mechanistic thing. But I did want to ask for a specific. I thought it would be helpful if people sort of knew how the flow of money works and all that kind of stuff through you guys. So iTunes sells something. How does the money flow back to them? Are you guys in the middle of that process, or just talk about that? Because we got about 10 minutes, so I want to cover that. Yeah, and I want to leave time for questions. So
I'll have to talk faster. To answer the first part of the question that's the thing is we're going to do a lot of things that a traditional distributor might do for you, going to bat for you. We are your liaison between yourself and the stores. We're just not going to charge you for it because it would be unfair to charge when it's not something we could apply to everyone. So what I say to people who come to us, I say, look, if you have something hot, if it's going to be on the next rock band or Guitar Hero, if you've gone out there and you've scored Grey's Anatomy, tell me. I'll go to iTunes. I'll say, do you guys want to feature this? Because iTunes wants to know from all their distributors, just like any store wants to know, if something is hot, if something is going to bring them sales. So that's the thing, is any distributor out there that is going to use their own customers as a kind of a big farm, we'll just sit back and wait and see who sells what, and then whenever it gets good, we'll notice the numbers and the percentages, and we'll jump in and try and grab. That's unfair. It's exploitative. I don't like it. And it was the impulse for us to make the company as we did it. Okay, the second half was the flow of money. Okay. iTunes essentially has a contract with everyone they distribute with, and all the stores follow suit. They only recognize the distributor. If an artist was like, oh, something's misspelled, I have a question about something, iTunes says, don't come to us, we don't have an agreement with you, we don't know who you are, go through your distributor. So that's actually how the money works. Let's say you had something up in our store in September. Anything that you sold in September, albums or songs, they're going to wait till the end of September, then iTunes and the stores are going to close the books, with the exception, I think, of Napster, whose streaming is still on quarterly. Anyway, every month they're going to close the books. 45 days after they close that book, they're going to send us, like I said, a big check and a big data file. We're pretty fast. In about 24 hours, sometimes less, we've fed that information into our system, we've broken it out, and then people can come to their TuneCore account, treat us like an automatic teller machine. You click on the My Account button, there's a number there. It'll show you exactly how much you made that month. You can see a breakdown on screen of every store, every nationality, every song sale type, if it was a ringtone sale, if it was a song sale, if it was a whole album sale. There are some tricks in there I'll talk about later if we have time. And finally, by the way, even if it's a foreign currency, we'll give you the original foreign currency sale and the bank conversion rate, so the exchange rate as they call it. Then, if you want, hit the button and download all that information as a spreadsheet so that you can hand it to your accountant. You don't always have to look at it online. Then, get a PayPal or ask for a paper check. We'll send either one to you. It's that simple.
All right. One thing I wanted to touch on very briefly in terms of the distribution of music is companies like Topspin and Nimbit, who are would encourage you guys to check into. I think if I'm understand things correctly, I think Nimbit is a little more like TuneCore, and they're a little more democratic in trying to help artists kind of take control. I think Topspin's a little more geared towards volume and artists. They sort of run both of these stores will help with technology applications that help artists sell downloads from their own sites and create widgets that are more or less storefronts. And so I think as you guys sort of think about your digital strategies, and I think checking into stores like that or companies like that it's a really important factor, and I think an increasingly important factor in the distribution of your own music. It's just something you don't want to leave on the table. I think that you really need to, wherever your consumer is, you want to have product there, and your website quite often is going to be where people are going to be checking you out, or your MySpace page or whatever, and it only makes sense to have your music for sale in those locations. I wanted to let the labels, we leaned on the physical, leaned on you guys pretty heavily on the physical side of things. Just before we open it up to questions, I wanted to see if you guys wanted to weigh in, or from your perspective, anything on the digital front that was unsaid.
As far as digital goes, I talked about taking care of the indies. There's a certain element of, certain things that we try to do to take care of the digital partners as well, such as iTunes or especially eMusic. And that generally comes in the form of exclusives, such as songs that you can only get through iTunes, or maybe a video that you can only get through iTunes, or giving away a song for free through eMusic. Like, for example, that's what we did with the James McMurtry album. We gave the exclusive MP3 free download to eMusic, which helps them by generating traffic and helps us by getting the word out about an upcoming release. So there are all sorts of little tricks and things and ways to kind of help you help my releases or your releases or whatever become more priorities for these digital retailers.
I think for us, it's more determining. It's always, is this going to be the end product, the CD? Is it going to be a physical purchase, or is it going to be for someone who's more interested in digital? I mean, that's always what the first thing has to come to mind. And what we've done more or less is we've done like free downloads. As you said, we use it as a marketing tool, because a lot of times the artists that we work with, it's just not heavily downloaded. That's just the reality of it. So we do things with like People Magazine, get the download, maybe 20,000, 20,000 free downloads or whatever. We cap it and such. We find that it works. I would like to say that we had one artist recently, and we went through Amazon and we did the free download, and it was thousands and thousands of downloads. It was absolutely fantastic. We thought, this is great. We're really doing something here. It didn't translate, into wanting to purchase the album or anything. So, kind of be aware of that. It is, there's a cost involved in all this, and some, we're digital, we sell, but in terms of marketing, I think you have to go with your eyes open on it.
I second that. Our last Ruthie Foster release, we had a free download of one song, and they had a marketing homepage thing. I think Song of the Week, and it's right up front, and it was a free download. I think we downloaded maybe 50,000, and so that's great. What percentage of that's going to translate into actual physical sales? And it was about 1%, I think. I mean, it really. So yes, there's some good impressions that were made out there, but that doesn't really necessarily translate into sales. The only other thing I might say is that this is evolving. I mean, just in the past several months, we've gone from digital rights management to variable pricing, and we're certainly experimenting, and we're lucky enough that our distributor is pretty switched on in terms of trying some of these different price points for top tier or middle tier releases, and we're gathering marketing data to find out what does it mean? Are people willing to pay $1.29 instead of 99 cents? Or if you lower the price to 79 cents, what does that do for sales? And so all that data is coming in now, and I don't have an opinion yet because it is so fluid. But we're going to learn, and it is certainly a moving target right now. But there's no question that it's taking a bigger and bigger percentage of our market, and we need to be nimble.
I wanted to share one experience too. When the guys were talking about using free tracks, I wanted to share a very brief story about an artist named Jason Boland. He's a Texas country artist, and he's got a really big fan base. And when we were setting up the new record, we went to him and asked for. If there were songs that really mattered to his fans that were never on an album, like, are there any live, things that you do live that the fans love, but you've never, put it on an album? And they was like, yeah, well, we've got these two songs that are kind of, a little more like novelty songs or whatever, but they've never been on an album before, and the fans love them. And so what we did was we got good live recordings for those two songs, and we used those as the bonus tracks. And what we told him was, go and just pound the crap out of, get that message out there to your fan base that these songs are going to be on there. Talk about it at shows, talk about it at whatever, and put it on your website, do an e-blast. And the result of what happened was, this was an amazing story, first week, the first day, Jason Boland was the #1 country album over Sugarland, over whatever, on iTunes. It was like Jason Boland, Carrie Underwood, and Sugarland, 1, 2, and 3. and it was pretty shocking, I think, to iTunes. We were a little shocked, but we really energized the fan base. We organized the plan, but the result of that was we were able to send out a national press release saying Jason Boland, #1 album in the country, on iTunes. We were able to, iTunes gave us one of those breaks, that they do these new and noteworthy things. And all those things on iTunes are all editorially driven. You can't buy, placement on iTunes. Well, they not only, they gave us the new and noteworthy in the beginning, but immediately they put up one of the big bricks that, across the top, which they left up for a month. And we were seeing sales in places where Jason never toured. We were selling a dozen records in Indianapolis every week, all on iTunes, just because people were like, "Who is this guy?" Or "I'm going to go and check it out." So Jason was not on their radar screen at all, and he went from just through hustling. He went from nowhere to a big deal for those guys, and they really supported him. And now we're going to put out a new record in April, and you better believe they're going to be there. So if you activate your fan base, and you drive sales, they'll notice, and you can build your story from there. And so in about two minutes, I wanted to ask you about your relationship with Universal. Y'all just did a deal last month with Universal, and then talk about that for like 2 minutes, and then we're going to open it up to questions.
I love that story, by the way, because it shows the hustle. There's never going to be a substitute for that, and there's never going to be a substitute for all media. There are going to be people who want vinyl, there are going to be people who want CDs, there are going to be people who want digital, MP3, WAV files. Never say no to a customer. Try to get it to them every way they can if it's cost effective. Anyway, we just struck a deal with Universal, and we're going to be working with Republic, with Island Def Jam, and I forgot the third. That's bad. Oh well. The purpose of this deal and what we wanted to do, first of all, it's a breakthrough. It's the first time a major is ever going to allow people to put music up through them and not secure them to a contract that requires a back-end percentage. It's a major trying to test out our waters, so to speak. The question as to what it will actually be is a little up in the air, and that's a good thing, because the purpose of it is to build portals. What we're going to do is we're going to build as I see a flag going. We're going to be building, along with Republic and Island Def Jam and all these guys, an entrance into TuneCore's functionality. It's going to be skinned with them. It's going to have whatever deals and whatever price points they want. The question is, what will it be? I don't know. But if it isn't enticing to the customer, then they're not going to come through that portal. Think of it this way. If you're an artist and you want to get into these stores, you can do it through TuneCore right now. You can do it through other ways. This is going to be another opportunity. Maybe they'll say, come and be an Island Def Jam artist. If you do sign up through this portal through us, I don't know, every 100th customer is going to get 100 free CDs printed up of their material. Maybe it'll be we'll send an A&R guy out to your gig if you register more than 1,000 sales. Ultimately, the only thing that's for sure is that they're going to have to use our philosophy and our methodology. So it's a little bit like asking what a newborn baby's going to be. We don't know yet, but it's very exciting.
All right. Well, guys, let's start with these two gentlemen here in the green shirts. You, sir, with the... All right.
Okay, one quick question. John mentioned a key word that's key for me at least, and that is jazz. To what extent do any of you work with jazz, or in the case of New Orleans, brass bands?
Selecta Hits, through its relationship with Warren Hildebrand, might be the largest independent national distributor of brass band music. We have distributed Mardi Gras label since I've been there, which is 95, and it is probably one of our best-selling labels. Certainly we're open to other labels in the genre, I don't think we've really had much. Obviously, we've lost labels over the years through the Louisiana Red Hot situation with was it Ryko, and we've lost a lot of our labels. We used to, at one time we had Maple Street Records, we had Monkey Hill, we had a lot of great labels over the years that have one by one wandered away to the Reds and the Rykos, and we're not in a position to compete with them. But we're certainly open to it. We have a huge jazz label called Evidence, which is probably our best-selling jazz label. And we carry a fair amount of jazz through our relationship with Gotham and Collectibles as well. So we're very much open to the genre. We also have a very do-it-yourself label that we talked into being physical called Blue Canoe. When they came to us, they were a digital-only label. The owner's a friend of mine. I've actually played jazz gigs with him. And he asked us to assume the physical control of 3 discs, which Blue Canoe being digital only would have caused us to have to open 3 vendors, and we refused. We're like, we don't want to open vendor for this record, vendor for the second record, vendor for the third record. Could you see your way to being a physical label as Blue Canoe, and then we buy from you, we pay you, and we get all 3 records through one vendor? He agreed to it reluctantly, and the results were awesome because the first disc was the Knoxville Jazz Orchestra featuring the music of Donald Brown. And it has sold like crazy. We also have another one. The name of the artist escapes me, but WWOZ played it last night, and it's called Chromatic Commands of the Inner City. I can't think of the name of the artist, but we sell a fair amount of that. So, yeah, jazz is still on our radar at Selecto. Now, let me give you the bad news. Our biggest purveyors of jazz are no longer with us. Tower, Virgin, Borders, Barnes & Noble. They're not buying anything. I mean, we still deal with Barnes & Noble and Borders, but getting them to buy anything is like pulling teeth. And we have an account with Starbucks that they never use. We say, we have this, we have this, we have this. They say, we'll come to you when you have something we want. That's how Starbucks is. So, I mean, it's not easy, but we still do jazz.
And we do. I know Red's actually doing a project with the Preservation Hall Jazz Band, where they brought in a lot of guest stars. James McMurtry, Jason did it. James didn't do it. Oh, I thought James was doing it. Amy Levere did it. Jim James from My Morning Jacket. So, but it's a little more select than that. We don't really do any New Orleans jazz. We'll do the occasional jazz artist. I don't know if y'all are familiar with Andy Bay, but we put his last album out. But there was a real, there was a press story there and a press infrastructure, so it really sort of fit our model. So, yes, sir.
Okay. What is the value of physical distribution today if I'm seeing my favorite artist who's been with Epic Records for 40 years, right?
Barbra Streisand or Bob Dylan?
Jeff Beck.
Jeff Beck, all right.
He was bought by Epic. After 40 years, he went for 10 months without a label. In the 9th month, he signed with a little unknown label, did a week of live shows in a London club, and the DVD and the CD, which were, you go to his website, you can order either, or you can get them from iTunes, lots of his files.
Well, I mean, the thing is, yeah.
But what I'm getting at is, yes, I want something tangible, physical, but I want it ultimately portable.
Okay.
I work at Radio Shack.
Yeah.
And the people coming in buying cell phones, right? They can go, click where they want,
Yeah.
pull down a file, and they have it.
Well, basically, I mean, every consumer is their own universe, and some people want CDs, and some people want vinyl, and some people want. I mean, it's just a matter of what you're doing. I mean, if Jeff Beck is going to the trouble of hiring a publicist and doing all this stuff, you don't want if one of his consumers is a border shopper and that's where they buy, you don't want to not have at least some representation of the product in Borders. I just think I think people tend to be really sort of, like black and white on the subject, and people are like, well, why do we need physical because, it's all going digital. Well, no, it's not all going digital, and even if it gets to the point where 30% of the market is physical, why give away 30? Why ignore 30% of the of the market? It's just it's silly. But you need to manage that 30% very carefully because you can sink costs, and you can really you can, if you're not careful, you can really bury yourself. But it's just, you just want to make product available to people however they want to buy it, but just be sensible about it. That's my philosophy on it. So, any other questions? We've got like 2 minutes. Anyone? Yes, sir.
I would like to ask you a question. This is my first time being here. I'm an artist from New Orleans myself, and I was affected by
A very important artist from New Orleans, a legend. Kilo.
the problem that I've been seeing with the physical and the downloads is the only time we get noticed. And I know you said that you have to have everything. You have to have the sound scans, and you got to have gigs and stuff. Right now, New Orleans was affected by Katrina. I done bought a home, a car, and selling out of my van. But what happens is we don't have nobody that educates people here in New Orleans about the programs and stuff that y'all have. Right now, the underground artists in New Orleans are making so much money, like Novis, Magnolia Shorties, myself.
But why are they not here? 17th annual Cutting Edge Music Business. Yeah.
Nobody knew about it. And the only reason I knew about it is J-Dog told me. What I'm saying is there's a lucrative business in New Orleans as far as music, physical, and download, very hard for business.
Yeah. Well, let me just
Been out for 4 years.
say this.
Why don't we come back down and do one?
All right.
I mean, what I'm trying to say is that we need someone down here. So Bobby Marchand, he was the only outlet we had for everything. He's gone now. We need an outlet down here that can wean the people into the urban part of it, because everybody don't have a computer. And the bootleggers are making the money because every young kid in the urban part do not have a credit card or don't have a computer. But I can take my same van with my own product and go to these places and sell CDs like crazy. What I'm just saying is I wish I wish I had the money, would come down here and get the urban people that have good money, and like you say, the stores, we have beaches, you can go to beaches and get any album now. And with the widespread of Katrina people that love bounce music and urban music, there's nowhere that I go in my van that people don't ask for. They're not educated about it. I'm here because I want to be educated, but then you have a lot of pocketbooks out there that's not educated. That can do the physical and the download. I would like to see someone that have a branch or something down here.
Well, I'll tell you what. Well, I don't know about setting up a branch, but if you, I'll give you my information, and you've got John's. If you want to set something up where some of us will come back down here and do something to where you can collectivize a bunch of the urban artists and the people that are interested in doing this and like learning about some of the tools and all that are available, I'll come back down. So.
I just want to say this. When I say we're looking for something like, let's say, radio play, I'm not saying it's got to be New Orleans. I know how difficult Uptown Angela and Rowe and Wild Wayne are. I already know. But, there's Hattiesburg, there's Gulfport, there's Mobile or Dothan, Alabama, these different markets. It doesn't always have to be a P1 market. It can be Lafayette or Lake Charles. I mean, we just need to see something so that when we go to Violet Brown and she says, who in the heck is that, and why do I need him in my store? We can say, well, he's getting play in Alexandria. He's getting play in, Tupelo, Mississippi, or Starkville, or Columbus. It doesn't always have to be a major market because we know what Clear Channel's like.
That's the sounding bell. Thank you guys so much for sharing your wit and wisdom, and thanks.